Hello, welcome to Trends. I am Bumi Obano. It's a great day today and I'm excited to be here with you as well as with Moses Omogena, who is always making faces when I'm making my grand entrance. Moses, what's the matter with you?
That's such a joke.
Ouch!
Bumi is still feeling Valentine. That's why she came here with a red.
All red, all glittering, even my lips.
I'm sorry, what did you even do Valentine?
Oh, actually, I had a good day.
Yes, so did the average Syrian.
Aside going to church, I spent time with family.
That's it.
They were my vow.
No boyfriends, no romantic dates.
All right,
no.
so moving on. What's
Okay.
like you? What did you do on Val's Day?
Well, my Val's Day was actually really good. I had the opportunity to be at the red carpet, to cover, a movie premiere. So I was with big time stars like I was hanging out with Desmond Elliott, Shane Akindele, Yabo Ojo. I know people, I know people. That's how we roll. So yeah, it was a good one. And Val's Day happens to be my mom's birthday. So,
Aww.
but I couldn't. I was at work, so I couldn't, spend time with her.
But you called her, you kept in touch, you made her feel,
Later on,
made her feel special.
I make her feel special every day. I don't need 14th of February to do that. Yeah. Okay, so I guess at this point, it's time to talk about what's trending.
What's happening.
Usually a lot, really, but I'm sure by now everybody already knows what is going on. Nigeria is trending, and of course, Nigeria is trending because of a bread seller. They call her Jumoke.
Brother, I've started learning how to balance
In
my
fact,
my
when I read
hockey
Jumoke's story, when I saw, the features and all that, when I saw that story, I just told myself, Moses, 2016 has to be your year.
Hallelujah.
Because if Jumoke can make it,
Moses can
who
make
am I not to make it? So Jumoke is a bread seller, and the bread she's even selling is agege bread.
My brother.
Not even tush bread, no.
So but check out that balancing act, man.
Jumoke actually left her hometown. She's originally from Jumoke Orisha Guno. She came
let's
from.
Keep it at
Jumaya, let's keep it at Jumoke. She came from Osun State. She had to leave her husband and her two kids, age 5 and 1 year old, to come to hustle in Lagos, selling bread. Jumoke actually makes a profit of $1, about less than 400 naira, 6,000 naira a month. So, of course, Hollywood's pop star, Tiny Temper, made a rare visit to Africa and to Nigeria, and of course, he was taking some photo shoots with renowned photographer T.Y. Bello.
And guess
now,
who
while he was
walked
doing
in?
that, and the interesting thing, according to T.Y. Bello, while they were taking that shoot, people were telling Jumoke to walk fast, walk past, you're bumping for someone's big star's photo shoot. And she was actually like in limbo when she took that shoot. So now when that, picture went viral, when people saw it, people actually even forgot that there was a Hollywood star in that frame.
They didn't even. They thought it was. They thought it was real.
It was
they
all
thought
planned.
she was an actor.
I thought it was planned when I saw the photo because the way she, even the dress she wore, it looked like a half tube kind of thing, a red. You could see that it looked all planned, trying to form street and all that. And you could see her eyes, you could see her countenance. She looked like Naomi Campbell in the making, Niger street star. Now, Jumoke might be earning $2,000 every month. She's ready to be signed with international modeling agencies. A bank has also agreed to sponsor her to university level and her kids as well to university level, 5-year and 1-year-old.
Amazing.
In fact, she's now used with the hashtag moving forward because Jumoke's life, and it's interesting, Jumoke doesn't even know how to speak English.
My brother, Jumoke kneels down to greet you.
She speaks purely Yoruba, and me and you here, speaking all the English in the world. I'm not sure we make $2,000 like that.
Let's keep it inside. Let's hide the shit.
Please, T.Y. Bello, if you are watching this program,
Pause now.
I sell bread. I just need you to know that.
I even bake the bread,
I
actually.
please, they lie. I bake and I sell bread. Just tell me the streets that you're going to shoot next time, and I will meet you there with my
Bread.
tray and my bread. Especially agege bread. That's what I do.
That's
Please, let me know. But
All
anyways,
right
it's a beautiful story. It's an inspirational one.
It
and
is,
of course,
it is,
Jumoke
it is.
can
I'm so
make
happy
it.
for her.
You have no excuse, to be lazy and of course to tell yourself, oh, the world is crumbling
All the
down.
best, Jumoke. And I wish her, even more success. And to all the many Jumokes out there,
Yeah.
This is a sign that don't give up.
Yeah. If you're selling bread, sell it well, oh.
You don't know who is watching.
Walk slowly. Oh, yes, of course, you can join the conversation by sharing your views with us via Twitter at TVC Connect using the hashtag TVC Trends. You can comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/TVC Connect, and send your pictures and video comments to the trends at tvcnews.tv. Bumi will give us the rest of the gist.
Yes, I will. Now, very quickly onto what today is all about. So, social media is agog with various comments under the hashtag Uganda Decides as Ugandans head to the polls for another general election. Now, this comments bothers on free and fair elections in Uganda. Everybody wants that, but also whether or not President Museveni is on his way to a fifth term in office. These are what we'll be discussing today on the program, but before we begin, take a look at this report when we come back from a quick break.
Political tension in Uganda is running high. 8 candidates are competing for the presidency this time. But it is essentially a 3-horse race between incumbent Yoweri Museveni, his seasoned opponent Kizza Besigye, and former ally Patrick Mbabazi. Museveni, who has been in power since 1986, holds himself up as the grandfather of the nation. And he runs his 5th term since 2005. This year's election is expected to be one of the toughest yet for the 71-year-old. Despite the stiff competition, the National Resistance Movement, NRM, led by Museveni, maintains it has a good story to tell 20 years into democracy.
We have 60,000 villages in Uganda. At every village, NRM exists, even structurally.
For the last 15 years, Uganda elections followed the same two-way contest scenario in which Kizza Besigye challenged the incumbents before declaring defeat. Kizza is the long-time opposition leader and retired colonel who would be running 4th time on the ticket of the largest opposition party, the Forum for Democratic Change. Back in 2015, Ugandans thought the upcoming poll could be an exciting election. This was months after presidential candidate John Patrick Amama Mbabazi left NRM party to join the opposition. A move many hoped would clear the way for a possible joint candidacy between him and longtime presidential contender Besigye. But this never happened. The two failed to agree on a joint candidacy and have gone forward on separate tickets. Today, the 66-year-old former Prime Minister is running under the Go Forward banner in what many describe as a shake-up of familiar logics.
It was not in the advantage of the opposition for Mbabazi and Besigye to unite. Why? Besigye appeals to the fanatical base of those who hate Museveni. But Besigye has been very weak at appealing to people who are fence-sitters, who are moderate, NRM, and who are also independent-minded.
And when you add the Museveni factor, everything else begins to look like a long shot for the other candidates trying to take power from a leader who seems to have been in power forever. Regardless of who wins, a full entry awaits.
All right, then, I like that, the Museveni factor. It has kept him in power for 30 years, and who knows, maybe it's going to keep him for the 31st. But that's an interesting report there, and it gives us an idea of what is happening in Uganda, especially with the election just around the corner. So, joining us to discuss this particular issue, we have our own, very own, CYRIL Abako, who is a researcher with TVC News. CYRIL, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Bumi. Thank you, Moses, as well.
Our celebrity
I
guest.
know. It's great to have you. It's going to be an exciting program. We have CYRIL. Museveni has been in power for 30 years. Great. But has that been great for the country?
There was a time when Museveni's coming was seen as a messianic one. There was a time when his economic policies seemed mercuric, seemed like transformational for Uganda. I mean, if you look at the historical trajectory, coming from the years of the Obotes, coming from the years of the Idi Amins, he fought an insurgency that brought him to power. And one of his cardinal pledges then, back in 1986, was that he wasn't going to stay too long. That he was going to blaze a different path from what Idi Amin and Obote had done, and from what other African leaders had also done prior to that time. I mean,
I hear about coming around very soon.
Yes, leading up to that time. So he, as it were, brought change, with his national resistance movement. But as it is today, the narrative is an entirely different one, because perhaps that thing that magnets people to power has also magneted him. And whatever advantages or benefits that his comment might have brought to Uganda, are now gradually being sacrificed on the altar of Sithitism.
Okay, I hate to cut in here, but this is slightly off topic to an extent, but Museveni's narrative is very similar to quite a lot of African leaders who seem to still be in power. They usually come in, to save the country.
As
and
a
for
result.
a few years, it looks like the country does really well. Then it stops, things just wanes, and they stay on, and bad things begin to happen. So it looks like that's what's happening now. Maybe long-term governance is actually a bad thing.
Well, I think at the risk of going against the grain of modern democratic philosophy, let me ask it to submit that largely depends on who is making the summation. If you look at what happened in Singapore, for instance, where Lee Kuan Yew was in power for about 3 decades or so, on the bounce, and Singapore today is transformed. Some people will even tell you that, look, I think in Asian thought, you'll be told that if economic reforms are going to be sustained and then are going to be carried through over a long period of time, actually somebody should be there to drive that process, however long it takes. And you can see China, you can see Singapore. Those are not clear democracies. In fact, they are authoritarian states, but economically speaking, they are at par with any other part of the world, in a sense. But in Africa, it's always a different ball game, because usually you look at the fact that the salvation of the country almost solely rests on the shoulders of one man who seems to be the unifier of his country. In Kenya, you had Jomo Kenyatta. In Ghana, there was a Kwame Nkrumah. If you go to the Gambia, for instance, where Yajama has been in power since 1994, he came to power when he was barely 25 or so. A lot of them, even in Zimbabwe, where you have Robert Mugabe, they ride on the crest of popular public sentiment.
Okay.
So they have all the backing, all the support. But when they go in there, I somehow, you might even give it to them that in the initial stages, they do quite well. But some things seem always to come full circle for them. Perhaps support of some external powers who tell them, look, you need to see through this process, but who won't come out in the open to actually trumpet this backing. But before because one man is lord of all, he begins to undermine institutions, and that's where the degradation, also begin to set in. So it's there. It's sad that Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has become the personifier of that trend for Uganda as at now.
Let's quickly come back to the Uganda election, because I know Moses wanted to come in at some point. We're looking at there are two main candidates, right? The two main opposition, and both of them were connected to the president in a way. One was his former minister, prime minister, and the other one was his former personal doctor.
Yeah. What I really wanted to find out from you, of course, Museveni has been successful in putting himself there for 30 years, of course, silencing his opponents if he even has any. Why do you think this upcoming election might be any different?
To be as honest as I can be, I don't see any much difference. If you look at the trajectory of how Museveni has always handled his opposition, Museveni does not tolerate a rival voice. Take, for instance, away from the politicians, let me just digress a little. Look at someone like General David Tienvusa Sejusa, who was head of his spy agency at the time, and then fled to the UK after saying that the president was bent on staying in power until for as long as possible, and then wanted to hand power over to his son. As soon as he wrote that letter, he had to flee the country. In the UK, from what we hear, from sources in Uganda tell us that he and the president later reached a rapprochement. He came back to the country. Today, where is he? He has lost his freedom. So it's difficult coming against Yoweri Museveni. Even those who are contending against him, particularly the former Prime Minister Mbambazi, who was also former secretary of the party, has many questions to answer. He was the Secretary General of the party at a time when virtually all the ills and atrocities that you link to Museveni took place. So he has been part and parcel of the old order.
They're trying to say you're ignorant in the doing of all these things. Looks like there's quite a lot to talk about, and I hate to stop the conversation when it's just getting so heated. But we have to go on a quick break. But do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. So we've been talking about the Uganda election and trying to understand what will possibly happen. Will Museveni remain in office, or will somebody overthrow the king? All right, Cyril, you're helping us break down everything that is happening in Uganda. I'm curious though, what do you think will happen if Museveni probably loses? Now, we're all looking at what if he wins, but we've seen over over and over again that Uganda's election, post-election, is always plagued with some sort of violence. So what happens if perhaps he loses?
Easily containable violence. You ask yourself, in a country with a population of just a little over 38 million persons, 80% of them live in the rural areas. And I mean, if you look at, and of this population, okay, the average age is 15, is less than 20. These are people that look up to Museveni, that might want to look up to Museveni as a father figure. That's one. Then secondly, Kizza Besigye has been a sort of easy handling. There was a time when, and they are very laughable. There was a time when they blew pepper into Dr. Besigye's eyes, and the president said he has handled him. That's how he handles him. In a country where the president can order the police to arrest him to the election, and then they arrest him for hours, they release him later, arrest him for hours, they release him later, and nothing really happens. Even in 2011 when Dr. Besigye.
But something did happen. There was a violent protest. At least one person recorded. We've had record of
the
one
police
death.
said one person died. The Dr. Besigye's party said 3 persons died. But really, it doesn't play up to something that you look at what is going to give Museveni a tough challenge. If there's anything, Museveni's losing the presidency is going to might throw up the country into the chaos, really.
All right,
Okay,
so now just finally, now from what we've said, Museveni is not going to go down. If at all, he's not going to go down with the fight. If he loses,
not so easily.
He still stands tall. Now, where does this leave Ugandans? What role do they have to play? At least they should have some power.
Look, like I keep saying, you just go to the Americas, look at America's neighbors. You would realize that, you would see the influence of America's political influence among our neighbors. Even recently, they had to go and stabilize relations with Cuba. I think that strong democratic forces in Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, whether it's on the platform of the AU or through any other backdoor channel, ought to be helping the political culture and environment in some of these countries, where people have sat tight for ages and ages on end. We need to go in there and help in terms of political education, aid, because in many cases, what makes these countries quake at the backing of Western powers is because they're going to withdraw some aid. Nigeria had held elections last year.
All right, CYRIL.
And something that we didn't think could happen happened.
Yes.
I think that gives us some measure of capital to actually help some of these countries to come out of the doldrums.
If I let CYRIL keep talking, CYRIL will not stop because he has so much in there. I want your brain sometimes. But on that note, I should have mentioned earlier that this would be a 2-part series kind of episode. So we've rounded up with Uganda, and to crown it all up, we look forward to the results of Uganda's election come Thursday. Yes, I mean the
election,
the coming election on Thursday. Now, moving on to what we're talking about for the second part of the program. You probably have been already looking and seeing this hashtag on social media. It is Buy Naija to Grow the Naira. I even like the way it sounds. So now, Nigerian lawmakers are using this hashtag to champion the cause to save Nigerian currency by sensitizing citizens to, patronize local goods. So I will call it economic patriotism. I don't know what you think. Now, with this campaign, mostly on Twitter, Save Nigeria's Nose-Diving Economy, or is it some hard nut to crack? Joining us via Skype to discuss this, we already have Cyril Abako in this studio with us. We also have Dr. Nonso Obikili. He is a research associate with the Economic Research Southern Africa. Dr. Nonso, great to have you on the program. Welcome to Trends.
Yeah, thank you. It's happy to be here.
All right. Okay. So, like you heard me, it's Buy Naija to Grow the Naira. What do you think about this campaign? Aside from the fact that it's a wonderful name or title, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the campaign is misguided and it's potentially dangerous to Nigerian manufacturing. And I think to understand why, it's important to understand what the problem with manufacturing in Nigeria is. Our products are not competitive, and that's the reality. And because we're a huge economy, we need lots and lots of demand to make manufacturing create the kind of jobs that we need. So the Nigerian economy as it is today cannot support Nigerian manufacturing, and that's a fact. if you think about the auto industry, we currently sell only about 50,000 new cars a year. That's not enough to support the Nigerian auto industry. Same thing with tires, with lots of Nigerian products. The Nigerian economy is too small to support manufacturing in the way that we need it to happen.
Sorry, is it the economy now or the demand?
So the demand is too small from Nigeria to support manufacturing. And
Despite our population?
Despite of the population. So because we have a huge population, you need huge demand to create the kind of dent in unemployment and job creation that we need. So even if we are...
Okay. All right, so I believe we might have lost Nonso, but we'll get him back because I really want to hear what he has to say. Cyril, what do you think? Nonso has made a very important point. He believes the hashtag is, the whole campaign is misguided. Do you agree?
Well, Nonso has his opinions, but I think that if from what I understood him to be saying, the demand is weak, then I think that what the hashtag is essentially meant to do is to drive, is to drive the demand. That is primary, okay? And that is on the part of the people. But again, we need to do beyond that. For once, we are having a time in our history, or a time in our journey as a nation, where this sort of campaign, of course, it won't begin. This is not the first of its kind, but this is going to be social media driven, and it's like a resurgence of what we've had before. And I think that every moment in history has its opportunity to key in to make some change. I think that the campaign is well guided. It is necessary. And what remains to be seen is how it's going to be sustained. Yes, we may not have enough policies to begin to drive it in a holistic sense, because it cannot be something that people just want to ride on, as such. There is the issue of the manufacturers on the one hand, the buyers on the other hand, and the government that plays the key regulation, policy, direction, everything. So we should be asking ourselves, with a hashtag like this trending, what are the other things that should also come into play to ensure that within a stipulated period of time, we are able to get where we should be from where we are? I think those are the particular details that we need to be looking into. So what are the indices that should drive the economy at this particular point? And I think that should really be the agenda on the table that all Nigerians should begin to key into, and then we begin a discussion.
From what Cyril is saying, you seem to buy the whole idea. But Nigerians may have their reasons, because we've seen this whole buy patronize Nigerian goods syndrome, but it never really seems to work, especially from a large number of the population, because of the issue of substandard quality. For example, I buy a shoe from Ikeja, a Nigerian made shoe, and it doesn't last me for 6 months. Now, give me one good reason why, as an average Nigerian, I have to go back. Why not just go and buy an Italian shoe that would last me for a year? That's the mentality, the orientation we have out there.
Unfortunately, if we want to tell ourselves the truth, the fact remains that whether it's made in Aba, made in Alaba, made in Ariara, made anywhere,
all right,
Nigerian manufacturers manufacture for different classes of people. This is a fact. If you can afford the Italian equivalent of what you want to buy, Nigerian manufacturers are making it. Mind you, we all know that sometimes they produce these things, take them across our borders, import them back as some things made overseas.
Sorry, hold that thoughts. Let's go on a very quick break and we'll be right back. We're not going anywhere. All right, we're still talking about, what are we talking about
Buy
again?
Naija
Okay,
to
yes,
grow
great.
the
Buy
Naira.
Naija. Yes, buy Naija to grow the Naira. I
You
was
see, she's
kidding.
forgotten about it. But
That was a joke. I was
did you
trying
buy
to
this
just
dress
use
from
it.
Abba? Let me even ask you.
Yeah, my
Excuse
tailor
me,
made it,
hashtag
handmade
Turkey.
in fact. She said
Turkey, Atlanta.
She made it. Please, it's wardrobe, actual wardrobe. I don't know, but my hair is all Nigeria.
Are you Brazilian wig?
Maybe not.
Really?
So Cyril was making a very important point. Moses, you want to continue on that important?
Yeah. We were just talking about the orientation, that the Nigerians have about, the fear of purchasing Abba-made products, based on standard and quality, really. Yeah.
They make these things in Nigeria. They make arguably the best and highest quality that you can find anywhere. And I'll give an example. There was a time when the World Bank came to Nigeria. I think that was during the first coming of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. When they came to Aba to see what was going on, they were dumbfounded. They were amazed. And so they said, okay, let's facilitate this. Let's give you some facility. Nigeria didn't have power, so they said, okay, we're going to provide the power and all of that. I think from what I even gathered, the power facilities were brought to Aba and everything, but the takeoff was what never saw the light of day. Okay, so what we need to be doing is the hashtag. The thing with information mobilization is the fact that if it just remains a slogan, it's going to be a slogan forever. This slogan ought to be transformed into something tangible, something we can see and we can touch. So for starters, Nigeria has core economic competence in certain areas. You take, for instance, the places we call geopolitical zones, okay, Bumi? If we can turn them for once, think of them as geoeconomic zones, okay? And each region can boast of what it has and what it can bring to the table. Whether it's in the area of cocoa, it's in the area of coal, it's in the area of bitumen and natural resources. If we begin to tap, not even for exports now, but for national economic self-sufficiency, if it's in 1 year, if it's in 2 years, if government says, look, in the next 1 year, we want to stabilize power production, and it's not just going to be about Kainji Dam or coal, Kainji Dam and coal. We want to diversify into coal for power, solar for power, etc. And we have sufficient, maybe let's say 10,000 megawatts of power production in 1 year. We would have created enough entrepreneurs because Nigerians are very enterprising. And once power is going to stabilize, people begin to prepare and say, okay, I'm going to tap into this and I'm going to tap into that.
People start selling bread, start baking bread.
There are certain things, but not like Jumoke anyway. There are certain things, look, in the Jumoke example, Faith caught up with her, okay, or Destiny caught up with her, but if we don't know how long she had been selling bread, it might have well been that she could have sold bread to a point that she could have had a kiosk, for instance, because it's not just about hawking.
Right.
I mean, for how long does someone continue to do one thing for years and years on end, and you remain at the same level of profit? If we want to tap into our natural resources and get Nigerians on board to say, look, it is not just about clothes and hairstyle, it's about a Nigerian value for Nigerian people.
Let me get Nonso's take on it, because I believe Nonso is back, so that's great. Now, Nonso, at the beginning of this particular discussion, you made us understand that you believe this hashtag and the entire campaign is misguided. But this is not the first country that has, done something like this or is doing something like this. Take India, for example. They have their Make in India campaign, which is trying to attract foreign investors. China has Made in China, trying to export. So this seems to be working for other countries. If demand is the problem, isn't the hashtag meant to help increase demand for locally made goods?
Well, I think you make a good point there. The Make in India campaign is all about exports. The Make in China campaign is all about exports. Buy Nigeria to go to Nigeria is about the local industry. It's about Nigerian demand. And that kind of distracts Nigerian businesses from focusing on the market they should be focusing on, which is exports. I mean, we know what happens to Nigerian businesses that start to enjoy government patronage and connected and, cornered markets. They stop competing. And once they stop competing, they lose the focus. So the focus has to be on exporting Nigerian products, because that's where the market is. That's where the growth is. Now the danger is that if you have government trying to corner the products, because that's where the market is. That's where the growth is. Now the danger is that if you have government trying to corner the market for local manufacturers, then they will stop being competitive. And that's a big problem. And I think that's why the hashtag is very dangerous. I mean, I'm sure nobody here has any Xenox products. Xenox is the typical example of what happens when companies stop focusing on the market and start enjoying patronage. Because it doesn't matter what you do, you cannot use national sentiment to sell products in Ghana. You can't use national sentiment to sell products in China. You can only use that here. So the focus has to be on getting Nigerian manufacturers to be competitive in international markets.
So how do we do that now? No, so help me understand, because we can't ignore the fact that it is profitable for the economy if we, buy more locally made goods. But how do we do that and still maintain a competitive market?
So look, there's nothing wrong with buying Nigerian products, but buy the products because they can compete either on quality or on price. From a government perspective, the best thing to do is not to buy stolen vehicles. It's to build a port, fix the roads, fix power. That's where the focus should be. And let's not get distracted by all these hashtags and all these, Twitter campaigns. The government has a job to do, and the job is to focus on infrastructure, on the enabling environment, on power.
Okay.
Everything else is really just gimmicks.
All right, on that note, let's go on a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with more thoughts from Nonso and CYRIL. And of course, Moses will get to talk about what you are saying on social media. So send in those tweets. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Now, I hope you have been sending those Facebook, Twitter comments, because at this time, we want to hear from you. So, Moses, over to you.
Yes, very, very interesting comments, coming in live from the internet. Saratu says, what grates for me is that Buy Naija, Grow the Naira is a convenient way of government sidestepping its responsibility of creating an enabling environment. And at Stella Odua says, hashtag Buy Naija, Grow the Naira is a good start for us, and it is necessary we all work together to make it work for the sake of our economy. At Babangida Ruma says, it is now too expensive to go to London, Dubai, and America. Come and do holiday in Yankari. Hashtag Buy Naija to Grow the Naira.
I loved that.
Interesting. And Ben Murabru says, today I was at the Made in Aba fair. I bought the cap I'm wearing, shoes and bed sheets. Hashtag Buy Naija to Grow the Naira. What about the car that took you there? And at Mr. Akpan says, the seats in my home were made by the carpenters in Ikorodu, and they are just as lovely. Hashtag Buy Naija to Grow the Naira.
I can actually I support that. Same here.
Well, so much for Brazilian weave. At Taiwo Michael says, when I see tweets about Buy Naija to Grow the Naira and people encouraging it, makes me appreciate the power of social media and how some few Nigerians think. At Gurai 50 says, let's change the perception of anything Naija no good within ourselves and buy made in Naija. Hashtag Buy Naija to Grow the Naira. Yep.
So what do you think? Would you buy Naija to grow the Naira?
Of course, I don't have a problem with buying Naija.
Do you buy Naija?
Yes, I do. The commodities that I know that are trusted.
Well, that's you know that I asked that because I wonder.
My
do you
boots,
think we have
the boots I'm wearing right now are actually, you know, were made here in Nigeria.
You know what?
The
Moses is
blazer
going to
I'm
take
wearing
a picture of that
were made
boot.
by designed
Moses will
by
take
Nigerian
a picture of
designer
that
Vince
boot
Anthony.
and put it up on our social media page so that you can comment on it. But my problem is, do you think as Nigerians ourselves, there's a perception problem already with our own products that will make it hard for this campaign to be anything more than another hashtag that people are just jumping the bandwagon on?
Exactly as I raised earlier.
No, I think
Nigerian made goods is that, you know, it's substandard.
I think what we need to do is to sit with the manufacturers. Before we went for the commercial, I was talking about creating the Nigerian value. There must be a national minimum standard for what we produce, which is where the SON, Standard Organization of Nigeria, comes in. There must be a standard, of production. And mind you, while we are talking about buying made in Nigeria, in Nigeria to grow the naira, it's not just about the economy. The naira itself, our national legal tender, is falling and failing miserably against the dollar. And we're saying that if the appetite for the dollar is going to be arrested, we have to begin to patronize locally made products. Okay. So first of all, buy Nigeria, but what is the Nigeria we're going to be buying? What is the value? Nobody has clearly articulated a policy position, even on moral grounds, say this is the Nigerian value. And this is what we stand for. Because,
the way to have Nonso
yes,
is Nonso
we do.
still on
And
Skype.
yes, let's bring Nonso in.
Exactly. So I'm sure you've been hearing, the debate in the studio, but, CYRIL has made a very interesting point, saying that there is really no clear policy on how to support this hashtag. So advise the Nigerian government, to take this up, from just being a mere civil debate, to being something that can really push this nation forward.
Well, I think we need to change the hashtag from buy Nigeria to grow in Nigeria to export or die. Because really, the international market is where the potential is, and that's where we need to focus on. The government has a job to do there. Infrastructure is really important, power really important, ports really important, regulation is really important. But the global economy is where the growth is, not the Nigerian economy. If you think about any industry, from cars to milk, the global industry is so huge that you can't focus on your tiny little market and ignore that. So I think the hashtag needs to change from buy Nigeria to grow the naira to export Nigeria.
Okay, so let's hashtag, maybe we can start that on. So I'm with you, export Nigeria.
Hashtag export or die.
Export or die. Okay, yes, CYRIL, finally, because we are running out of time, what this will be your final words?
Yeah, again, it comes down to the fact that if we want to export what is made in Nigeria, Nigerians must appreciate and love their value. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot sell what you don't use. It is important that we concretize the local base. It is important that we are self-convinced. There's no lack of self-belief and self-doubt in what we're doing. Make it by Nigerians, used by Nigerians, and then exported abroad. Like I've said before, we need to have a clear, articulated statement on what Nigerian value is and what it is meant to serve. Except that is clearly defined and in good time. This hashtag, what happens usually with propaganda slogans is that after a while, when it cools off, it becomes a very bad precedent to have been laid. So it's important that early in the day, we clearly articulate what we want to achieve, define what the Nigerian value is, and begin to work towards,
so it doesn't die.
Yes, making it a reality.
Okay, because we are about to end the program, I just want you to give us your final thoughts on the matter. Nonso, can you hear me? So what do you think?
Sorry, what did you say?
All right, so I want to hear your final thoughts on the matter. How do we get past this into, yes, exports, but we have to have something worth exporting. So how do we get to that point?
Well, I think the message to Nigerian manufacturers is forget about government patronage. Focus on being competitive. The international markets can provide more revenue than any government in Nigeria can, and that's where the focus should be. So don't listen to the National Assembly people talking buy Nigeria, buy Nigeria. focus on the global markets. That's where the potential is.
All right, on that note, we are, yes, on time as we wrap up today's program. Thank you so much, Dr. Nonso Obikili, for being a part of Trends. And thank you, CYRIL Abbako, for being with us. It was great having both of you on the program. And thank you. Yes, thank you. And thank you, everyone at home or wherever you might be watching the program. We loved your comments. And please keep those tweets and Facebook comments and emails coming. Moses is going to tell you how you can keep doing that.
Exactly. Of course, from the discussions, we've had two interesting hashtags, hashtag export or die and hashtag made in Nigeria, used by Nigerians and, of course, used by the rest of the world. Yes, you can join the conversations by sharing your views with us via Twitter at TVC Connect using the hashtag TVC Trends. You can comment on our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/TVC Connect and send your pictures and video comments to the Trends at tvcnews.tv. I am Moses Omogena, proudly Nigeria, by the way.
And I am Bumi Obana, also proudly Nigeria. Bye for now.